Cinematic Storytelling, Professor Burton, Week 2, Assignment 1.
So, what are we doing for this week, Professor Burton?
So this is an extension of what we started to do last week. We're taking a little bit of a break on this assignment from the frames and the storyboard, and we're talking about developing characters. And characters are an essential part of every cinematic story. There are two components to this assignment, so make sure you do both of them.
What are these components?
Great. The first one is developing the main character from the storyboard that you presented last week. The second one is creating a completely different character and visualizing that character. And the assignment suggests that you can use a friend or a little sister or a big brother or...
Will we have to end up using these characters in a story?
Not in part 2, but in part 1, yes. Part 1 is your characters that you started out with and that you're going to hang with for the remainder of this class and in your storyboard. So what's the exercise? This is an essay, essentially. I'm not looking for pictures here. I'm looking for bullets. So it doesn't have to be a traditional essay form, but bullet points. And here's some of the criteria that's listed in the syllabus, and then I'm going to underscore one that's the most important. What's the character's backstory? It should include things like the name, the gender, body type, where's the character born, what does he or she like to do, what are hobbies, etc. So all of that is important. Why is it important? Well, it may not come forth in the storyboard itself, but if this was a greater story in the real world, you would need to know all these things and more, because eventually you're creating dialogue. And so all of this character backstory comes out in how they say things. Okay? Now, the most important part of this, although it doesn't look like this, the way it's written in the syllabus, is the following. In the scene, I'm reading it to you directly. Okay? Does the character have an internal conflict in relation to his or her goal? Now, it's just a bit of a bullet in the middle of this syllabus, but that is everything. So I am going to look at that first and foremost. What is the internal conflict with your character? Okay, if it's the guy sitting on the bench and you choose to make that your story, which you don't have to, what is his internal conflict? What's an internal conflict, you may ask? Well, it's something that's hidden from the camera, but comes out in the character's actions. So, for instance, an internal conflict could be that our hero has a great fear of heights, and he is a parachutist in a circus. So he has to overcome this internal conflict every time he goes out and jumps out of a parachute to make a living. That's interesting. That's what makes your character whole. An external conflict is different. It's something that audience can readily see that comes out, and maybe he only has one leg. And when he lands, he has to land in a special way. That's how he resolves the conflict. Your story always revolves around an internal and an external conflict. So in this bullet point essay, I want to know about that more than I want to know about the other things, although all the other things are very important.
What about the side character that we have to make? Is it more important than them?
In the second part, that's a great question, is not as important. What's important there is that you have to also draw the character. So what I'm looking for mainly in that part 2 is that whatever you've told me in the bullet points comes out in the drawing you give me. So if it's your little sister, although I don't know your little sister, it should look like your little sister. If you're saying that she's African American and has, long blonde hair, then it should show up in the drawing. Otherwise, what you're visually depicting does not match what the character's bio is.
And what for those of us that cannot draw?
In that case, then you take a still picture and you can work it in Photoshop, etc. Take a digital picture. I think that's it.